In a certain place lived a demon king. The demon king himself is the pinnacle of all evil. His presence alone is a form of true fear. He has brought suffering to humanity since ancient times. Frightening, even to the point of showing indescribable suffering to every living creature in this world. The only reason humanity can still survive is because every time the demon king appears, he will be destroyed by a figure known as the hero. Currently, the figure of the demon king who has 6 horns is suddenly approached by a young man who is the hero. And suddenly again, without much small talk, the hero immediately launches his attack on the unprepared demon king. After that sudden battle, the demon king is cornered, rising from his sitting position. The demon king comments in a pained tone, questioning how he, as a demon king, could be defeated like this. Hearing that comment, the hero walks towards him and asks if all this feels so strange to the demon king. The figure of the hero in this era, who has a young appearance and black hair, is named Leon Liberto. The king with an annoyed tone explains that there is a lot of history that tells about the hero defeating the demon king. He can't even deny the fact that the previous demon king was also defeated by the hero. He also always knew that a day like this would come sooner or later for him. But all his frustration comes not from anything else, but why the hero Leon came alone to face him. The demon king with an annoyed and confused tone explains that a normal hero should fight the demon king together with his group consisting of friends he met along his journey, starting with arguments with his friends because of differences in views and personalities. But over time and through many battles, the hero and the friend who often argues will grow full trust in each other. Finally, the hero will defeat the demon king together, and after it's done, the hero will remember his long journey and end up crying while praising his friend's hard work. The demon king gets emotional again while clenching his fist and says that that's what should happen because a plot like that is what should be passed down from generation to generation. Hearing all the demon king's babbling, the hero Leon is silent for a moment before then saying in a flat tone, "Don't tell me that this demon king is a big fan of the hero because he knows the plot in such detail." Hearing the hero Leon's guess, the demon king's face sweats with his cheeks slightly blushing. He brushes off the guess with an awkward tone and reasons that he can know that in order to defeat the hero Leon by researching past heroes. Because of that, he is confused how the hero Leon could come here without any comrades at all. The hero Leon is silent again while holding his chin, confused about how he should explain it. The hero Leon then answers innocently that it's because he alone is enough. He can swing a sword as well as magic. Besides that, he can also heal himself. He can even see the traps that have been set along the way. And because of that, he thinks that he doesn't need comrades. Truly a self-reliant hero. Hearing that, the king starts to shudder in annoyance, with full emotion and a mocking tone. The demon king says just admit that the hero Leon has no friends at all. Instead of being provoked, the hero Leon is silent in confusion, questioning to himself how the demon king could say something so childish. Because their conversation is getting more off track, and the demon king is also getting more nonsensical. The hero Leon lands his final attack that defeats the demon king. Time passes after the demon king is defeated, and the world becomes peaceful again. In a certain place, there is a large building occupied by a noble family. There is also the sound of a boy with a high and rough tone calling another boy to wake up quickly. The boy with the rough mouth keeps calling him with the term trash and questioning how long he will keep sleeping. His words make a white-haired boy immediately open his eyes and wake up, sitting on his bed. The boy looks towards the window that reflects the morning light into his window. He remembers his recent dream that he dreamed again. The dream is a strange dream according to him, because in his dream, he is a hero facing the demon king. So often, the boy mutters and clearly remembers his dream that the hero in his dream must be very strong because he can defeat the demon king alone. Getting up from the bed and washing his face, the boy immediately prepares himself. For him, his dream feels very unrealistic, and he hopes even if it's just a dream, he hopes his dream becomes reasonable. Speaking of the hero, in this world there is also a legend about the hero who can defeat the demon king alone like in his dream. His story is written in a history book, and the hero is named Leon Liberto. The hero Leon is a real figure who lived 100 years ago. Coincidentally, the white-haired boy is also named Leon. When his mother passed away after giving birth to him, she gave him that name in the hope that he could grow up to be strong and brave. While tidying his tie, suddenly the same boy's voice questions in a rough tone whether Leon hasn't woken up yet. Hearing that, Leon is startled and immediately leaves his room and approaches him. There is a chubby boy with an arrogant face scolding Leon for coming late. He is Leon's eldest brother named Snail. Hearing that, Leon, who has a shy and timid nature, tells Snail that even though he is late, now is not the time they agreed to meet. Hearing Leon rebelling against him makes Snail annoyed and asks in a high tone while pointing at him whether Leon dares to protest against him, because Leon shouldn't make him wait. His threat makes Leon scared and immediately apologizes. Snail sighs in annoyance before then leaving while inviting Leon to come with him. Not forgetting, Snail also points to his back using his thumb. Realizing that Leon follows the direction and sees a large bag and several baskets of bread. In the end, Leon carries the bag with a piece of bread in his mouth and follows Snail from behind. Leon knows that in reality, he has a miserable life even very far from the hero figure in the book. Leon himself knows that he is an illegitimate child and also the second son of a small noble. On the other hand, his eldest brother, the first child from his father's legal wife, is chosen to be the successor or heir to his nobility, so that every command spoken by his brother is absolute. Because of that, his brother always takes him everywhere and treats him like a slave, based on Snail's appearance. Leon guesses that he plans to hunt monsters with his friends today, and of course will force him to come along as his baggage carrier. Leon himself admits that he can't even defeat a single monster. If he were as strong as the hero Leon, then he wouldn't be as worried as now. Sometime after walking, the two of them arrive at the gathering place. Snail is seen greeting his friends in an arrogant tone and explaining that he is late because he had to wait for his stupid little brother. His friends don't mind it, even seem to be trying to hide the fact that they have been waiting for him for a long time. Then they divert the topic by asking where they will go today. Some of them even express their impatience to hunt monsters. Snail then grins confidently and answers that they will go to the forest in the west. Hearing that location makes his three friends shocked and scared beyond belief. Their three faces suddenly pale and ask again whether Snail is sure that they will go to that forest. Another friend explains that he heard that in that forest there have been several groups of goblins seen. Even the adults always warn the three of them not to approach, let alone enter the forest in the west. Snail laughs arrogantly and grins while answering that he doesn't care even if there are 100 goblins because he is not afraid of them. Snail then asks his friends to look at his item. With pride and full of arrogance, Snail draws his sword and shows it to them. In the eyes of his three friends, the sword looks shining cool. So does in Leon's eyes the sword looks cool. His friends comment that Snail's sword looks extraordinary. Snail nods proudly and explains while grinning that his sword is the best sword in the world used by the legendary figure, namely the hero Leon. Hearing that makes the three of them even more shocked and praise Snail because he never disappoints them. Of course, they become curious how Snail's family could get the sword belonging to the legendary hero. Snail with full pride explains that far in the past, a horde of disgusting-looking monsters appeared in this city. At that time, the hero Leon appeared and exterminated them. And at that time, also his ancestor fought side by side with the hero. Because the hero was amazed by his ancestor's fighting ability, the hero gave his sword as a gift. His friends let out admiring sounds. Snail again says in the same tone that with this sword, he won't have any problem slashing goblins or even orcs. His friends look admiring and believe his words. On the other hand, Leon, who hears it, doubts the story from Snail just now. Time passes, and now they arrive at the forest they are heading to. Their Snail can easily defeat a goblin, as he said. Of course, that makes his friends even more convinced that Snail's sword is the hero's sword. Snail himself boasts about the sharpness of his sword. They nod believing and agree that it's so sharp. Even the city guards couldn't cut goblins as neatly as that. On the other hand, Leon looks very wary of his surroundings. He realizes that all of them while in this forest have only faced a few goblins and feels that even if there is a group of goblins, they will be fine if it continues like this. What makes him confident is that besides the sword held by Snail is quite sharp as babbled before, Snail also has a large and strong body according to him. Besides that, his three friends have also hunted together in large numbers, so according to him, they won't be overwhelmed if facing goblins. On the other hand, he has a short body, weak, even never held a sword, so the four of them never let him participate in the hunt. Even so, it doesn't mean he doesn't want to participate, but on the contrary, because according to him, fighting is scary. Not long after, from the bushes behind Leon, the typical goblin giggling sound is heard, which makes Leon jolt in surprise. When turning around, many goblins are seen coming out of the bushes and running towards them. Unfortunately, when Leon counts them, their number is more than 10, which means they are ambushing not with a small group, but the entire pack of their group. Leon immediately runs and hides behind the bushes, as predicted by Leon. Snail is seen seriously calming his friends not to panic and convincing them that he will slaughter them. His words succeed in making his friends feel a little confident, and the battle breaks out. On the other hand, Leon monitors them from behind the bushes. Leon realizes that goblins have an advantage in their numbers, while Snail's group has an advantage in their individual strength, so it becomes something that makes them able to dominate the battle. When the battle is ongoing, the same sound is heard from behind the bushes. Leon's prediction is off. Although it's true, Snail and his friends are able to dominate the battle, but they forgot one possibility. Yes, the appearance of an orc. An orc with a large body and horns on its head appears from behind the bushes and starts shouting when arriving at the battle location. Its appearance is enough to give very heavy pressure to Leon and Snail's friends. They are shocked beyond belief by its presence. For orcs themselves, they are monsters with medium danger level. If compared to goblin monsters that have low danger level, then the strength of a goblin is nothing compared to the strength of an orc. Sure enough, right at the appearance of the orc, the surviving goblins run away in fear from it. Seeing that makes Snail's friends even more panicked and say that it's impossible for them to defeat that orc. As usual, Snail with his arrogance and full confidence grins and says that it's impossible they can't defeat an orc, because with the legendary hero's sword in his hand, he is not afraid even of an orc. Snail without hesitation raises his hand while charging towards the orc. When entering its attack range, Snail starts swinging his sword. But unexpectedly, Snail's sword is held by the orc like a non-sharp wooden stick. That makes Snail shocked beyond belief. On the other hand, his friends who see the incident immediately run away in panic, while expressing their fear that they don't want to end here, and as they thought they won't be able to defeat the orc. That makes Snail shocked and starts to panic because he is left by his friends. On the other hand, Leon, who is also panicked and scared, wants to run away too. Especially Leon, who from the beginning is timid and also can't fight. But unfortunately, Snail's hand comes and grabs Leon's hair and pulls him back until he falls to the ground. Leon is shocked as well as panicked because he sees Snail doing something so cruel to him. In a panicked and happy tone, Snail orders Leon to handle the rest, and Leon was brought here to be used in situations like this, and Leon should be proud to be sacrificed for him. Snail runs as hard as he can without hesitation, leaving Leon there. Hearing that, Leon's expression becomes very shocked, as well as looking resigned to his situation. Leon is now very close to the orc. Leon knows that the orc will end him here soon. Right after thinking that, a young man's voice appears in his head and asks, "End a weak figure like this orc?" Hearing that questioning voice, Leon reflexively answers in a trembling, scared tone that the orc in front of him is not a weak figure, even he has never defeated a single goblin so far. The same voice answers again in a flat but firm tone. Isn't Leon the one who has power beyond the Demon King? Leon answers again that all that is only in his dream, and he is not a hero. He is just an illegitimate child from a small noble family who can't even hold a sword properly. Right after answering that, Leon is silent, questioning to himself to whom he was talking just now. Besides that, Leon also questions to himself where the fear he felt before that made his body shudder went. On the other hand, the orc is already prepared to end Leon there. Seeing Snail's sword that fell before, Leon picks it up and uses it as a weapon. Now Leon's gaze doesn't look innocent and looks more focused on what's in front of him. His whole body moves and makes a position that feels natural, as if that position has become part of his body, and he often uses it. A ready position to attack. Right when the orc steps forward, Leon suddenly dashes and succeeds in slashing one of the orc's arms to the point that the orc doesn't budge because of how fast it is. When its arm falls to the ground, the orc just realizes that its arm has been cut and screams in pain. On the other hand, Leon is truly shocked by what he just did and doubts that he just cut the orc's arm. The same voice appears again in his head saying that this battle is just child's play. Besides, there is no one else around, so if not Leon, then who else would do that slash? Leon stands frozen there trying to understand this sudden situation. On the other hand, the orc, who is annoyed and doesn't want to give up, attacks Leon again from behind when Leon shows his careless side. When its hand almost reaches Leon, Leon moves very quickly following his instinct and launches a counterattack until cutting the orc's body into two parts. Leon himself, who sees it directly, truly doesn't believe that he can cut the orc's body so easily. Leon knows that the orc monster has a body and bones that are much thicker than goblin monsters, but now he succeeded in cutting it without any obstacles at all. Then the same voice appears again in his head saying that if he who is now in Leon's position, then he would have finished all this just with a tree branch. A flash of a familiar facial expression appears in Leon's head, who is none other than the hero Leon with his characteristic sharp gaze. After seeing that, Leon is shocked and realizes that now he remembers everything clearly, where from the beginning he is the hero Leon himself, who is known as the strongest hero throughout history. If currently the hero Leon is known through legendary history storybooks who lived 100 years ago. Looking at the sword he holds, Leon smiles slightly and mutters that somehow the hero Leon succeeded in reincarnating. After successfully defeating the orc, Leon was silent for a few moments and looked longer at the sword he was holding. Leon muttered that this sword doesn't have anything special, which means it's just an ordinary sword. Besides that, Leon himself felt that the sword was the type of sword that he would sell directly after getting it in his previous life. That shows that the sword really has no value in his eyes. Looking around, Leon muttered again that if observed carefully, he felt he had been in this area before. After thinking for a moment, Leon remembered that he was sure he had come to this area because he received a request to exterminate some monsters. At that time, the son of the regional head, or mayor, was appointed by him to show the surrounding area. The mayor's son had a really greedy face that made him have to give him a sword that he didn't need. Remembering that, Leon now feels confused whether the mayor's son is the person referred to by Snail as his ancestor. The confusion arises because of the mismatch of information. Where Snail previously his ancestor fought together with the hero, but the reality in his memory his ancestor was scared until his whole body trembled and fell. In the end, Leon didn't think too much about it and concluded that the real story had deviated quite a bit after 100 years had passed. Leon then walked away casually out of the forest. Behind the bushes, animals and monsters that saw Leon now froze in fear and shock with that sudden change. A few moments later, Leon successfully exited the forest safe and sound with a flat and relaxed expression. On the other hand, Snail and the others were silent there, looking like they were thinking about something. Seeing Leon, who managed to return, made Snail surprised, and with a stuttering tone because of surprise asked what happened to the orc just now. Leon, with an innocent and honest tone, answered that he had defeated it. Leon's answer just now made Snail silent in surprise before then laughing out loud and mocking Leon by saying whether Leon thought that he would believe what Leon said just now. And the most reasonable thing is that the orc released Leon because Leon looked like just a damn kid who wasn't even worth defeating. Seeing Leon carrying his sword made Snail surprised and commented that thankfully Leon brought his sword and he thought he had lost it. Hearing that, Leon without hesitation immediately gave the sword by throwing it without looking at it. Of course that made Snail surprised and scolded him because Leon had acted impolitely towards him. For the first time Leon put on his annoyed expression and then asked Snail to stop shouting because it sounded noisy. Of course that made Snail very irritated and immediately scolded him thoroughly. Of course Leon didn't let that happen. In the middle of Snail, who was babbling, Leon threw something at Snail, which immediately made him silent and reflexively caught it. When looked closely, the object that Leon threw at him was a head of an orc monster, which immediately made Snail surprised and shocked beyond belief until he dropped it just like that. Likewise with his friends, who let out their scared tones when seeing just a head of an orc monster. During their fear, Leon just left without leaving any sound at all. When Snail was about to scold him again, Leon was no longer there. Time passed. Leon returned to his residence. He directly went to a warehouse, which was his room. There Leon greeted a slime monster in his room and called it Sura. It seemed that when Leon called it, Sura jumped around like excited. The slime monster itself is the weakest monster. His meeting with Leon happened 2 years ago. Leon found it in their family field that looked like it was wandering aimlessly. After he healed its wound, Sura started to often follow him everywhere. And since then Leon secretly kept it as his pet in this room, and only Sura could make him happy again after going through hard days. It seemed Sura jumped and sat on top of Leon's head while swaying like jelly. Leon stroked it and tried to understand the intention of its movement and said that today's activities were also finished. Leon then started to think again about things he needed to confirm in this second life. Leon knew that he and the hero Leon were two different people, and he was very sure that this was his reincarnation. Although Leon inherited everything about the hero Leon, he still had some questions, like how the hero Leon died. Thinking about that question, Leon remembered that all this time he had never heard of any achievements after he successfully defeated the Demon King. Even in the scattered books that tell his story, it only ends with living happily after defeating the Demon King. But there is nothing that tells what he did after that. But the strangest thing of all is that even though he remembers his past, he can't remember anything after he defeated the Demon King. Because of that, Leon had a hunch that something happened very quickly right after he defeated the Demon King. His hunch made Leon even more convinced of his hunch, which felt more reasonable, where the possibility of a deadly curse had been placed on the hero Leon. Leon assumed that the curse was very strong and designed specifically to counter the hero Leon and activated when its user died. Because the curse was very specific, which made the curse strong and had some conditions to break it, even though the hero Leon had tried to break the curse quickly, but the curse also really locked his magic quickly, so that the hero Leon couldn't use his magic. Because of that, the hero tried to drink a potion to remove the curse effect or the magic locking effect. But the hero Leon was also affected by other effects like paralysis, which made him quickly lose control over his body and start losing consciousness along with the end of his life. Leon guessed that's what happened in the last life of the Demon King and commented to himself that the end of his life really disappointed him. Leon concluded that in the end both the Demon King and the hero both ended up together there, even though the hero won decisively in terms of strength, but he lost because he was too careless. Leon remembered the Demon King's words babbling about the hero team that should face him in a group. That made Leon think about the situation if the hero Leon had friends during the battle. Then when the curse activated, then his friend would handle the matter of breaking the curse. Leon was sure that the curse would only be very strong if used on one target, so the existence of a friend would be very influential. Leon got up from his bed and muttered that there was no point in feeling regret now, and now he had to start finding out about the abilities in this new life. Whether he is still as strong as he was in the past, he feels it's impossible for him to defeat an orc in this new body, so this convinces him that not all of his abilities have been reset. To confirm, Leon used his appraisal skill on himself. Seeing the status window appear in front of him, Leon felt relieved because he could still use it. Seeing Leon's identity named Leon Celeste, age 12 years, human species, and species level 3. Seeing his species level part, which was low, made Leon a little surprised because compared to his previous life, his current species level is so low. Seeing another window, Leon became surprised because the job or occupation he had didn't disappear and was at the peak level. Job itself is something given by the gods. If you get one of them, then those who get it will be blessed by the god's blessing. A person's basic abilities will be readjusted based on their level. With the job itself, they can improve and hone their skills and magic to be more effective. Besides that, the peak or maximum level of a job is level 20, and if it has reached that level, then they will get a stronger blessing. Each person can only get one job at a time, but when they have made it to the peak level, then that person can get a higher level job with the same type of job, or can choose a job with a different type. In his previous life, Leon had gotten 4 different jobs and raised them to the highest level. That's why he could fight the Demon King alone, even though in the end both fell together. Leon concluded that the effect of reincarnation is that his species level will be reset to level 1, while his job will remain the same. When opening another window, Leon was surprised again because he saw his status now has S rank in every status, even though the actual rank is E. Leon knew that happened because he was still at a low level, but because his job level is high and already at the peak, then his status becomes S rank. Even so, if compared to his previous life, which was already at SSS rank, it would feel very far. But to get status like this at level 3 is already very unbeatable. Besides that, Leon also has 300 job points, which can be used to get the next job. To get those points can be obtained when increasing their species level. In his previous life, Leon had increased his species level to 100 and used it to get new jobs. Based on that, Leon once thought that if like this, then he could become stronger than he was in the past and get new jobs again. For the job itself consists of 3 levels. The first level is beginner job, which requires 100 points to get it, intermediate level job, which requires 400 points to get it, and lastly there is expert job, which requires 2,000 points to get it. And for Leon's current job, he has 4 jobs from the past accidentally. His jobs are Swordman archetype, with levels past level 1 Swordman, level 2 gladiator, level 3 swordmaster. Mage archetype, with levels past level 1 mage, level 2 wizard, level 3 high wizard. Thief archetype, with levels past level 1 thief, level 2 phantom thief, level 3 king thief. Healer archetype, with levels past level 1 healer, level 2 reviver, level 3 saint. For the maximum level of species level is 100, so there is also a limit on the number of points that can be received. The number of points received depends on each individual, but can be summarized that generally as much as 5 points in each level. Even in rare cases, some people will get 10 or 20 points in each level. But different for the hero Leon, who gets 100 points in each level, so it explains how he could make his 4 jobs reach the highest level. Seeing the number of points he has now, Leon guesses that the remaining points from his previous life also carried over to now. Besides job, there is also extra jobs, which is a job different from the main job, and is a combination of 2 main jobs that already have level 3. Like the combination between swordman and mage job, then sword wizard job level 2 will appear. Then the combination of knight and priest job, then paladin job level 2 will appear. Then the combination of mage and healer job, then sage job level 2 will appear. In his old life, Leon could have become a sword wizard or sage, but to have 4 jobs and maximize them requires 40,000 points. Because of that, he didn't have points to get that extra job, and didn't feel regretful either. But if he now can once again get that many points, then he can get the job that he once left behind. Leon feels that he has to think about this as seriously as possible, because there is no guarantee that he will reincarnate again later. Because of that, Leon plans to go to the church first. His goal is to see the job tree, or job tree. He plans to see first what jobs are available for him that can be chosen. Besides that, the only place to get a job is at the church, because to get it requires a special skill named prayer, which is only owned by the priest archetype job. Leon then went to say goodbye to Sura, and also asked him to guard his room. It seemed Sura answered by shaking its transparent body. Right when stepping outside, Leon met again the fat Snail who had just returned. Seeing Leon, Snail immediately scolded him because Leon dared to go home just like that without permission from him. Leon sighed long while scratching his head, feeling annoyed because Snail always scolded him. Seeing Leon's reaction made Snail even more irritated and asked whether Leon was listening to him. Hearing that, Leon reflexively answered that with Snail's wide mouth, even if he didn't want to hear it, he had no other choice. Of course, that answer made Snail furious and started scolding him again. On the other hand, Leon just realized that what he thought came out of his mouth again, even he forgot how the previous Leon's speaking style. Because he was so annoyed, Snail advanced and was about to launch a punch at Leon. For Snail, he moved very fast. But in Leon's point of view, Snail was really slow, like his name, Snail. Because of that, Leon thought there was no point for him to dodge the attack, because he was sure the attack wouldn't have any impact on him at all. Right when Snail's punch was a few centimeters from Leon's face, a magic circle suddenly appeared, which made both of them surprised. Yes, Leon was also surprised when seeing it. Not long after the circle appeared, suddenly a hard blow that looked like an invisible punch hit Snail's chubby cheek and immediately made him faint on the spot. Leon was shocked beyond belief. Not because the incident was something out of his control, but Leon knew that he had just remembered his automatic counterattack skill. The name of the skill is Double Reflection, which is an invisible shield that can give a counterattack with 2x greater destructive power than the original to the attacker. Although it sounds very strong, in reality the skill has a limit on the destructive power that can be reflected back. Thanks to this skill too, in the past he almost didn't do anything when fighting the Demon King. Leon scratched his cheek awkwardly because he felt embarrassed because he really forgot about his skill. Moreover, all this still felt new to him, so he once thought that this skill also didn't exist. Squatting near Snail, who was lying fainted, Leon tried to call him in a relaxed tone, thinking maybe Snail was fine. But the reality is not. Snail really fainted until his eyes rolled back. Besides that, Leon also realized that his nose was also crushed because of his attack just now. Leon extended his hand and used his healing magic, but suddenly an old woman's voice screamed hysterically when seeing Snail lying and said, "Mommy's child, are you okay?" The woman is Susanna, Snail's mother. In panic, she immediately approached him when seeing Snail fainted on the ground. Seeing her arrival, Leon was surprised because he knew her arrival really made the situation worse. Leon knew if he stayed here then the atmosphere would become more chaotic, and he chose to run away quietly. When about to run away, Susanna suddenly ordered Leon to stay there and asked what Leon had done to her mommy's child. Leon, with an innocent face, answered that he didn't do anything, and Snail himself suddenly fell to the ground. Susanna, with full emotion, answered that it was really not true because she saw herself since Snail approached Leon. So it's impossible for her mommy's child to fall just like that without a clear reason, and of course Leon had done something. Susanna stared sharply and out of her pointed glasses frame at Leon and said that Leon's action couldn't be forgiven because Leon didn't know himself. She knew that she should have expelled Leon from the beginning. Susanna kept babbling, venting her annoyance towards Leon, and kept calling Leon with rude terms until the illegitimate child. Leon, who now understood who he was, became unaffected by all of Susanna's words. Even casually, Leon asked Susanna to listen to him and said that he had business that had to be done first, and asked if they could discuss this another time. Without waiting for her answer, Leon just left, which made Susanna shocked beyond belief. After walking for a while, Leon finally arrived at the church. There he met a nun and explained his arrival to check his job tree. The nun nodded understanding and took Leon to a special room in the middle of which there was a crystal ball on a pillow. Touching it, the crystal ball glowed and emitted various letters that were not understood. Before then, points appeared along with lines connecting them, more like a constellation. Everyone in this world is born with types of jobs that they can and cannot get. There are some types of jobs that can be learned independently, but still most of the job types cannot be obtained. In his previous life, Leon had jobs that he could get from various types of jobs from the beginning. Looking at his diagram, Leon realized that the available jobs now are still the same as before. Leon started to consider what job he would take this time. Initially, Leon planned to choose Sage job as his main choice and anti-hero job as his second choice. But his choice changed again when seeing other jobs, like when he saw fighter and archer jobs, which could make him expand his flexibility in fighting between long and short range. But suddenly Leon realized one thing, namely, he doesn't need to become really strong for now. That's because now there is no demon king like in his old life. Besides that, he is also not an adventurer. In his old life, he had been chosen to be a hero candidate since he was 10 years old, and since that day he always dedicated every day in fighting and fighting monsters. With that goal, he always thought of one goal, namely, to become strong. Remembering those times, the current Leon just realized that those were really hard times for him. But this time the world is in peace, and this time he can really be free from the shackles of a duty. Because of that, Leon, without hesitation, touched the light on his diagram that read Tamer or Tamer. The Tamer job itself is a job that can make the user tame and become friends with animals and also monsters. Besides that, with his new job, Leon feels maybe he can understand what Asura has been thinking all this time. Leon feels that Asura is already very close to him, but because Asura itself doesn't have eyes and mouth, he has difficulty understanding it. That also makes Leon even more sure to choose that job. On the way home, Leon returned to his residence casually. When arriving in front of his house yard, a servant was seen calling Leon with a worried face and explained that the master of the house wanted to meet Leon to discuss the Snail incident that just happened. After getting information from the servant, Leon was escorted by the servant to the room where his father was. His father was named Lloyd. In the same room, next to his father, Snail and Susanna were also seen with annoyed expressions. His father called Leon with a worried face as well and asked where Leon had just gone. Leon casually answered that he had just returned from the church. His father nodded understanding, but also awkward. Lloyd seemed confused about how to start the conversation and also felt pressured by the two people next to him. With a worried tone, his father asked if it was true that Leon hurt Snail. Before he could answer, Snail immediately cut him off and explained that of course Leon hurt him, even his nose was broken because of Leon's doing. Leon was silent, listening to it before then confirming it. Hearing Leon's answer just now made Susanna start to burn inside. Susanna then slammed the table very hard until it made her husband shocked beyond belief and scolded Leon, who dared to hurt his own brother, and kept calling Leon with rude nicknames. On the other hand, Leon was a little surprised to see their excessive reactions. Even the one who was actually wild and rude was the chubby kid Snail. Susanna yelled at her husband and suggested to expel him from their family because if they kept Leon in their family name would be tarnished by Leon. The father looked confused and still tried to defend Leon by saying that Leon was only 12 years old and he doubted to expel him at that young age. On the other hand, Leon also understood his father's intention who had no intention to expel him. Leon knew that his mother was a servant in this residence. She had a beautiful face to the point that his father couldn't hold back and ended up with Leon's birth. He was sure that his father was currently filled with guilt and extraordinary confusion. Even so, Leon himself didn't need empathy from his father. Leon then, with an innocent face, said that he would leave this house soon. The statement made the father shocked beyond belief. On the other hand, Snail and Susanna smiled widely, happy to hear it. Even so happy, she still forced her husband to expel Leon with a wide smile on her face. Even so, his father looked still insistent to defend Leon with the reason that Leon was still 12 years old. This time with a smile on her face, Susanna said that the reason was not too complicated because as a child of ordinary people, they could start working at the age of 12, and Leon was also included in the category of ordinary people's child unlike them. Because cornered, the father willy-nilly accepted the proposal and still tried to lighten Leon's burden by saying that he planned to ask the traveling merchant family to take Leon and make him work there. But Leon, with an innocent and calm, said that it was not necessary. Of course, the response made the three of them surprised. Leon explained that he would become an adventurer. His father looked more confused, especially since he also knew that Leon was a coward and had never held a weapon even once. Adventurer itself is a job that is joined and owned by an organization called Guild Adventurer, and usually receives and works on exploration or fighting requests to get money. Since this job allows them to be at the peak of glory based on strength and past achievements and not bound by social status, this job becomes popular among poor farmers and poor people who want to try their luck in reversing their financial conditions. However, even so, when there is a profit, then there is something that must be paid, namely the danger that always lurks them, which not a few of them die during their work. Besides that, unlike soldiers hired by nobles, adventurers do not have stable income. That's because they have to survive, eat, stay, even have to routinely check and replace their equipment. Leon remembered that in his old life, he also once worked with adventurers in fighting the Demon King's army. Maybe instead of being called working together, the incident is more appropriate to be called accompanying only because he did everything alone. Back to the current situation, the father looked doubtful and explained that Leon had never held a weapon even once, let alone experience in fighting. Leon answered again that father didn't need to worry because he had just gotten a job suitable for fighting at the church just now. Hearing that made them silent again in surprise, before Snail suddenly got angry and ordered Leon to stop lying, because according to him it was impossible for Leon to get a job at his age. Even he still didn't have enough points to get even one job, even though he was already level 8. Leon didn't reply, and just sighed while thinking that apparently his brother only had standard status. Leon then clarified again that he would leave this house, and he could survive in his own way, so they didn't need to waste their time worrying about him. After the meeting, Leon returned to his room, and Sura was seen now looking like it had eyes and more expressive. Even Sura jumped around with its cheeks looking slightly blushing, and also Sura's voice was heard welcoming Leon back. That made Leon surprised and squatted while stroking Sura. Leon couldn't believe that he could really understand what Sura was thinking right now. Even when Leon stroked Sura, Sura said that it felt ticklish. When Leon used both hands to stroke its body, Sura said that it felt good. Leon was really surprised because with the same way but slightly different made Sura give different responses. If he didn't take that job, then he would never know this difference. Not long after, Lloyd's voice was heard calling him. His father's face was seen full of guilt and regret. Leon casually approached him and asked what needed to be helped. His father said that he wanted at least Leon to bring this. His father gave a bag of money to Leon, which made Leon himself a little surprised when seeing the contents. Leon asked again if his father was sure to give this much money to him. His father sighed and held both of Leon's shoulders while saying that he wanted to be a good father figure for Leon. But he apologized to Leon because he could only do this much for Leon. Leon himself didn't refuse it because he thought if his father himself wanted to give it, then he would accept it. Besides that, with the money gift from his father could make his journey easier. After that, his father left again, letting Leon do his preparation. Leon then took a small cloth bag and made it into a magic bag or item box, using his skill. Thanks to that, now Leon could put all the items in his room. Leon also knew that at least the capacity of his simple bag had a capacity of about 2 or 3 times this room. Leon also planned if he had gotten a better bag, then the bag would be made at least able to store one small village. That made Leon remember that his magic bag in his previous life was full of items that were valuable according to him. Time passed, and Leon now finished cleaning all his items. Yes, really clean until nothing was left there except the bed. While looking at his really clean room, Leon muttered that he was grateful to be reborn like this. Not long after Asura came and asked Leon where Leon would go. Leon, with a smile on his face, answered that he would leave this house. The answer immediately made Sura's chewy body harden before then immediately jumped towards Leon, while shouting, not wanting Leon to go. Leon was quite surprised by its reaction before then smiled and said while stroking it that Sura would also come with him. The answer immediately calmed its panic before then became happy again. In the next morning, Leon approached his father's room to say goodbye and thank him for all this time. His father looked surprised because Leon really would depart in this early morning. After saying goodbye, Leon started to leave with a smile on his face. Leon really felt happy with his freedom, and his free life would start from now. When walking on the road together with Sura, Leon realized there was the presence of several people around him. Leon knew clearly that there were several people who were tailing him from afar, and some of them acted as if people who just passed him who actually were watching him. After counting the number of presences he felt, Leon could confidently say that they were like one group. Not long after, Snail's voice appeared again with his arrogant tone calling Leon and saying that he had gathered his people to celebrate the departure of his little brother, and Leon should be grateful for his action. Snail then babbled that he had run out of money in his pocket and used too much of his money lately, and he also knew that his father gave money to Leon and asked the amount. Leon himself looked casual and innocent even though he knew what Snail meant. Leon didn't answer and asked Snail to stop bothering him and asked him to move because he was blocking his way. Snail laughed out loud and said that Leon still didn't understand his own situation. Right after saying that, the kids his age immediately surrounded Leon with grinning smiles on their faces. Snail then, with an intimidating tone, said his main goal, namely, he wanted Leon to give all the money his father gave to him if Leon didn't want to end up suffering. Leon, with the same expression, asked what would happen if he refused. The words made Snail emotional and considered it a challenge. With his annoyed tone, Snail asked his kids to show who their boss was here. A kid behind Snail immediately charged and hit him. Yes, the same thing happened. His reflecting magic shield activated again and counterattacked the kid with 2x effect that ended up fainting on the spot like the ball kid Snail. Snail became panicked and started ordering the other kids to attack him simultaneously. The same thing happened again, and all of them who attacked him immediately bounced until fainted. Leon himself just stood there and felt that actually his automatic skill had a mechanism that was not always fully active. In other words, had a nature like gotcha or uncertain when it activated. Thanks to his sword master skill, able to increase the chance for the skill to activate more often, and like the current incident, Leon thought that the success rate was quite high. The kids started to panic with what happened. Snail himself, who was already consumed by his emotion, started to draw his sword and would attack Leon by himself. Snail grinned widely before then laughed, giggling, and said that if Leon really had a job, then show it to him now. Leon sighed long, feeling annoyed with the behavior of this ball kid Snail. Leon then took a small branch and said that he would use this as his weapon. That made Snail more emotional and felt humiliated. Leon said again that he just thought that to defeat Snail, a branch this small was more than enough. Snail's emotion overflowed and immediately jumped to attack Leon. Leon was surprised to see it, but he was surprised not because of Snail's attack, but because Snail never learned from his mistake, where attacking recklessly was dangerous. Leon quickly set his sword stance. Only in one pull of his small branch, Snail's sword broke just like that. Snail was shocked and scared beyond belief, so were his kids. Leon then smiled slightly and said, and the match was over. Snail didn't accept, and with emotion asked what the hell with the technique Leon used just now. Leon was confused, and with innocence answered that what he did was just slashing as usual. Of course, Snail didn't accept, and said that it was impossible for a branch that small to cut his sword with a slash like that. Leon again with innocence said that, but he really did it, and asked Snail to see it directly. Leon swung the branch slowly towards the road. For a few moments nothing happened before then a strong wind slam suddenly appeared along with the road being slashed until it became fragments. Snail was shocked beyond belief. Leon didn't stop there. He swung the branch upwards, which immediately an air explosion was heard and split the cloud above it. They all froze because of the shock, seeing their reactions. Leon had an idea when remembering Snail's babbling before. Leon said with his serious tone that the truth of the branch he used was not an ordinary branch, but this was a branch from the legendary tree, namely the World Tree. The legend says the hardness of the branch from the World Tree could be even stronger than orichalcum material, and as they saw that this branch had power exceeding the power of the hero's sword. Leon closed his eyes and threw the branch to them, while saying that he would give his branch to them if they wanted, and if they sold it, then at least it would be worth 100 gold coins. Hearing that, they all immediately scrambled to take it, including the ball kid Snail. After trying hard, in the end the ball kid Snail was the one who succeeded in getting it. He was so proud, lifting the branch high and swinging it. On the other hand, Leon, who saw it, looked enjoying the show and warned him in his heart not to swing the branch too hard. Not long after that, the branch held by Snail broke, which immediately made them silent in shock. When Snail was about to scold Leon, Leon was no longer there. And that's how Leon's adventure life began as a reincarnated adventurer. Leon's journey begins. He boards a horse-drawn carriage and hitches a ride to the city. Luckily, the person driving the horse-drawn carriage is an adventurer. The man with his adventurer equipment and bandana on his head asks Leon if Leon plans to become an adventurer. Leon nods, and he also wants to hear their adventure stories. Hearing that, the two adventurers become happy. The man introduces himself as Ryan, a D-rank adventurer with the fighter job. Then the girl sitting in the passenger section, wearing her wizard equipment, introduces herself as Nia, who is also a D-rank adventurer and has the mage job. Leon then innocently questions their D rank. Hearing that question makes Nia a little surprised, because Leon doesn't know about the rank system for adventurers. Nia explains that based on the abilities and track records of adventurers, they can be given ranks from the lowest F to the highest S. Hearing that, Leon becomes more confused because the highest rank is S. Leon questions to himself what about SS or SSS ranks, and according to him, everything has changed after 100 years have passed. Nia continues to explain that ranks F and E are categorized as beginners, and D for those who can start taking care of themselves, for C for those who are quite experienced. Ryan adds with a happy tone that at their age, both becoming D-rank adventurers, they are quite successful. Leon nods understanding. Nia then, with a slightly worried tone, says that this will feel quite difficult for Leon, who wants to become an adventurer at his young age. Leon is a little surprised to hear it, but suddenly a man's voice is heard asking to stop. Reflexively, Ryan pulls the horse's reins immediately. It turns out the voice is not directed at them, but thanks to that they realize that the carriage in front of them is being robbed by bandits. Besides that, the carriage users who are being robbed are also being driven by two female adventurers. Nia informs that to Ryan. Ryan is also ready and asks Nia if, according to Nia, the two of them can fight that many enemies. Nia sounds doubtful and answers depending on how experienced their enemies are. Suddenly a man laughs while approaching them and says, "Aren't those adventurers the adventurers he has been tailing all this time?" The man informs that they come from the Madhouse gang, which is the largest and most feared gang around here. Hearing that, Ryan and Nia are shocked beyond belief, but Leon looks confused. Leon innocently whispers and asks Ryan if their gang is famous. Ryan nods and explains that their gang is feared because of their numbers and their terrible brutality. He once heard that the Adventurer Guild from the West once found their hideout. The Adventurer Guild formed a team and raided their place with a squad consisting of high-level adventurers. But the result was that the Adventurer Guild suffered many losses and a crushing defeat. The man puts on a threatening face and sticks out his tongue while forcing them to hand over all their valuables if they want to live, but they will only take the women. Both Ryan and Nia start to panic and confused about how to act, because their actions will not only determine their fate, but also the female adventurers who are being held hostage. On the other hand, Leon feels that if they are his enemies, he doesn't need to hold back. Extending his hand forward through the gap between Ryan and Nia, a magic circle appears from Leon's palm. Suddenly, a large sandstorm appears that immediately pulls all the gang members into the air and drops them from a height until they faint. Both Nia and Ryan are very surprised by that sudden attack. Luckily, Leon's magic didn't lift the two female adventurers who were being held hostage, and when seeing the gang members lying on the ground, it makes them shocked beyond belief. After the magic ends, Nia and Ryan stare at Leon with their confused and shocked faces. They even question what the hell with that magic just now. Leon answers innocently that the magic just now, only sandstorm magic. Nia asks with her surprised tone, isn't that magic combining two elements of wind and earth? Hearing Nia's question makes Leon think that his magic is not effective. Leon then asks if he should use more deadly magic. Because according to him, the gang members have admitted their crimes, and it's better to make them unable to fight and just capture them. Hearing Leon's innocence and the horror of his magic makes both of them emotional and surprised while answering that that's not the problem. Leon is silent in confusion before then jumping from their carriage. Ryan with a trembling tone asks Nia if Leon just used magic without any incantation. Nia, who is a mage with the same trembling tone, answers it's impossible. It's very impossible to use magic without using incantation. On the other hand, Leon walks towards the lying gang members and starts thinking about what he should do to them. He also thinks it's impossible to bring this many gang members into the horse carriage. Then, the two female adventurers who were held hostage earlier approach him and want to ask what is actually happening. But Leon, who doesn't hear it, ignores it, and with lightning speed, Leon stacks the bodies of the gang members and ties them before starting to lift them as if lifting a light object. Leon says goodbye to Nia and Ryan that he will go first. Without waiting for an answer, Leon immediately runs at full speed, which makes him disappear from there. Nia and Ryan freeze there with their mouths gaping in shock, while the two female adventurers are silent in confusion with the situation. It doesn't take much time. Leon arrives at an entrance gate of a city, seeing a guard there. Without small talk, Leon immediately drops a bundle of the gang members' bodies and hands them over to the guard while explaining that he caught these bandits on the way. Of course, that sudden thing makes the guard shocked beyond belief. When about to ask what actually happened, Leon has disappeared from the scene. Leon enters the city named Badaka casually and looks around. Leon mutters that this city looks unchanged since he last came to this city. After walking for a while, Leon stops at a large building with a symbol above it. The building is the Badaka City Branch Adventurer Guild building. Entering it, Leon decides to register first to start his adventure, but not far from the entrance, his steps immediately stop when seeing something not far from there. His face is full of shock, even to the point that his mouth gapes in disbelief when seeing a statue that feels familiar to him. So shocked that Leon needs a few moments to realize that the statue is his statue with a quite cool pose. In the midst of his shock, suddenly a woman's voice is heard explaining that the statue is the statue of the greatest hero, where about 100 years ago the hero succeeded in saving the world by defeating the Demon King, and the hero is named Leon Liberto. Leon turns, and it seems that the woman is dressed in worker clothes who serves as a receptionist complete with a small hat on her head. Leon innocently asks why the hero's statue is in the Adventurer Guild room. The woman explains that the hero's statue is spread throughout the country and kingdom, and maybe throughout the world, because the hero Leon Liberto is a hero figure for all humanity. For the Adventurer Guild itself, they use the hero figure to idolize his extraordinary strength. Even there is no Adventurer Guild that doesn't have the hero's statue in their branch. The woman then clasps both hands on her chest with her blushing cheeks, then says with full solemnity and full admiration that besides all that the hero Leon Liberto is also really completely handsome. Leon, who hears it, only smiles horribly at the woman. After all that, the woman introduces herself as Shirlu and asks Leon's purpose for coming to this place. Leon explains that he came to register as an adventurer. Hearing that, Shirlu looks a little surprised and asks Leon's age. Leon answers innocently that he is 12 years old. Hearing Leon's age, Shirlu looks surprised and answers isn't at that age, Leon hasn't chosen his job yet. Leon with his smile lifts Sura and says that actually he has taken his job as tamer and introduces Sura to Shirlu. Shirlu looks doubtful and says isn't Sura just a slime and Leon is a tamer. Shirlu then says that honestly she won't recommend Leon to become an adventurer with a job like that. Leon is a little surprised and asks the reason. Shirlu explains that a tamer's skill training is often ineffective on high-level monsters. The user has to strengthen themselves to tame monsters as strong as the user and join their team. But users of this job are quite bad in combat. But it's a different story if Leon can upgrade his job to level 2 and become Arch-Tamer. But still it takes several years to get Leon to that point from now. Shirlu explains again that the case for expelling a tamer job user is really high, but if Leon insists on registering and taking the test, then Leon has to fill out the form first. Shirlu then invites Leon to her receptionist desk and hands a form to Leon and asks him to fill it out first. Leon then takes a quill pen and starts filling it out. While filling, Shirlu reminds Leon to fill it honestly, especially covering up his criminal record. Shirlu then laughs softly while saying that at Leon's age now she is sure Leon doesn't have such a record. Shirley then glances at the contents of the form Leon is filling out, and she is a little surprised when seeing his name. Shirley then smiles and comments that Leon has the same name as the hero Leon Liberto. After finishing, Shirley informs Leon that his exam will be held tomorrow morning. Leon asks what he has to do during the exam. Shirley is silent for a few moments to remember, before then answering that the exam depends on the participants' jobs, but if for a tamer like Leon may be related to sparring, and maybe Leon has to fight the examiner to show his skills. In the next morning, Leon attends the exam. In the test area, a man with full equipment is seen standing in front of the exam participants. The man introduces himself as Zaraga, who serves as their examiner. Just with his words makes the atmosphere among the participants tense. Zaraga emphasizes that he just reminds them that the exam he gives is not easy, because if he lets the weak ones pass, and they end up dead in their work, then it will be burdened on him, so he will test them very hard. Zaraga then points using his sword to a young man and chooses him as his first participant. The sudden appointment makes the young man surprised and awkwardly steps forward. But the young man ends up failing and even counterattacked by Zaraga, so do the next participants, next and next. All of them who have been chosen really fail totally, until Zaraga firmly says that they fail. That makes the participants start to decline mentally, because Zaraga is too strong for a beginner exam. Even some are pessimistic and know that Zaraga the examiner is an experienced adventurer. On the other hand, Leon is also quite surprised to see Zaraga, who becomes his examiner, because it's too excessive in this beginner exam. When Zaraga turns to the participants' line and is about to call the next participant, his words stop when seeing Leon's appearance. He comments with a belittling and firm tone, "What the hell is this? Leon is just a little kid and also a weak tamer." Zaraga with his mocking tone furrows his brow and says even a stray dog can kill Leon's slime. Immediately Zaraga's words trigger Sura's anger, who immediately descends from Leon's head and jumps towards Zaraga, while saying full of emotion, "What did you just say, huh?" Leon himself, who sees it, is surprised to see how brave Sura is. Sura looks really angry, even though only Leon himself can understand it. Leon worries if Sura will be fine. In the end, Leon lets it because he is sure that Zaraga won't kill it. On the other hand, the other participants start whispering to each other, talking about Leon, who is a tamer with conversations that belittle him. Zaraga sighs before then saying why does he have to fight a slime, but no matter what, this is part of his job. Hearing that Sura feels underestimated, making Sura's emotion explode. Without mercy, Sura dashes to crash into Zaraga at full speed. So fast that Sura looks like a cannonball. Even so, Zaraga manages to dodge it, although it makes him very surprised. Zaraga starts to sweat in panic when seeing Sura's speed, just now even to the point of questioning Sura's identity. On the other hand, Sura bounces on the floor cutely, as if provoking Zaraga. Zaraga, who doesn't want to lose, starts swinging his sword towards Sura, but Sura easily dodges every attack like a ball. Even so, often dodging makes Zaraga look like being played by Sura. Indeed, that's the reality. Before then, Sura starts showing off its ability. Sura with great agility jumps here and there until Zaraga can't follow its movement, and with that speed Sura hits Zaraga very hard until making Zaraga himself overwhelmed to withstand its attack power. The participants start to be surprised seeing the result, where a slime can push back Zaraga the examiner easily. Leon is also confused with this situation. Leon then uses his appraisal skill on Sura. When the window appears, Leon is quite surprised when seeing it, where all its statuses are quite high at its species level 1. Besides that, there is another status that Sura has become a creature successfully tamed by Leon. That makes Leon feel confused whether normally this slime monster is this strong, or maybe Sura itself is a high-class slime from other slimes. Leon remembers the words of a nun to him that monsters successfully tamed by the user will be strengthened by the tamer through mana. Not long after thinking about that, Zaraga has fallen kneeling, and with panting breath Zaraga gives up, which makes Sura jump around happily. Zaraga is really made very surprised because he, who is a C-rank adventurer who has a level 2 power fighter job, can be defeated by a slime, and even he is made to feel that much pain by Sura. The participants who initially mocked Leon from behind are now made surprised when seeing the battle result. Sura casually returns to Leon's hand like a sticky ball. Hearing the conversations of the other participants, Leon furrows his brow in confusion when just knowing that Zaraga is a veteran adventurer. Leon feels that a veteran adventurer should be much stronger than that. Leon then walks approaching Zoraga with Sura in his hand, asking how his test result is. Zoraga, without small talk, says that Leon definitely passes. It's impossible for him to make a participant who can make his examiner battered fail. He knows that Sura is strong, but he doubts that Leon only has one animal. Zoraga then gives advice to Leon to join a group as soon as possible. After the exam, Leon returns to the Adventurer Guild building and hands over his exam result paper to Shirlu. Shirlu is really surprised when seeing the result because Leon really passes and says that Zoraga is famous for being a very strict examiner. Leon innocently asks, "Oh really?" Shirlu shows the result paper again, and with the same tone that Zoraga even gives Leon an A grade. But when Shirlu sees the note, her face immediately pales because in the note that Leon succeeds in making Zoraga battered. Leon smiles and turns to Sura and says that Sura has done its best during the exam. Sura shakes its jelly body proudly and says it has worked hard. Leon then asks Shirlu to set aside her surprise about his result, and he has something he wants to ask her. Shirlu realizes and asks back what Leon's question is. Leon asks if currently there is no adventurer category with SSS rank. Shirlu raises part of her eyebrow and answers that actually it's not really none. It's just that there is no adventurer who can meet the requirements to enter that category because they have to be strong enough to defeat a behemoth monster alone, aka solo. Leon tilts his head and asks about soloing against behemoth. Shirlu thinks Leon thinks the same as her and says that the requirement is really unreasonable, right? Leon in his heart answers that according to him the requirement is not a difficult requirement. Leon then asks about the SS rank category requirement. Shirlu explains with her disappointed tone that the rank category requirement is also equally unreasonable because have to succeed in defeating a disaster level monster, namely Red Dragon solo. Even so, according to Shirlu, unreasonable until calling what monster human can do that. Even until now, the S rank category is the highest rank. Even so, those who want to enter that category have to be strong enough to defeat a disaster-level monster, namely King Orc, solo of course, and there are only a few S-rank adventurers in this world. Leon is really surprised to hear it, and with a slightly unbelieving and disappointed tone asks why there are only a few S-rank adventurers in this world. Shirlu is a little surprised to hear that question, and answers what Leon means by that question. Indeed, she once heard that out there are many adventurers who have SS rank, and also SSS rank when the time the Demon King was still alive, but the monsters in the past were really very strong compared to now. Hearing that, Leon realizes something, that the Demon King's excessive mana makes the exposed monsters become stronger and makes them wilder, but now 100 years have passed after the Demon King was defeated. The world becomes peaceful and the monsters also become weaker. Then Leon concludes that when monsters weaken, humans also weaken. That's why in this era, it will be difficult to get experience points to raise the species level. Shirlu then gives Leon's adventurer identity card to Leon and informs him that Leon has to pay for remaking his card if lost, so please keep the identity card so it doesn't get lost. Shirlu also gives a sign necklace for tamed animals to Leon and explains that as long as the tamed animal wears the sign necklace, then Leon can bring it casually into the city. After giving it, Shirlu comments that she is also curious how to attach the sign to a slime. Maybe Leon can merge it into its body or something. Leon then lowers Sura from his head and asks Sura if Sura can store the sign in its body. With an enthusiastic tone, Sura answers that it will try. Sura jumps back onto Leon's head, and Leon starts inserting the sign into Sura's body, and Sura starts absorbing it until it enters. Sura then moves like jelly when it feels happy getting its identity sign. On the other hand, Shirlu, who sees it, her cheeks blush feeling Sura's behavior, is really very cute. After all that, Leon is standing in front of the request board and reading the request papers there. Suddenly a girl's voice is heard calling Leon. Leon turns to his back, and it seems that the person calling him is the girl he once saved yesterday when the bandit gang held them hostage. The girl with long and flowing hair that looks soft and short body smiles at Leon, and her friend next to her, who is a girl with black and short hair, invites Leon to take a request together with them. A reunion with people he knew briefly in a new place.